Hi, you guys, welcome back to reading lesson 4 of Fantastic Mr. Fox. Might see wearing a cap. This is what you get to do when you're at home, eh? Learning at home, that's a fun thing. I have a big selection of caps. I have like all the basketball and American football teams. I collect them. It's Miami Heat, which I was very lucky to go to. And I tell you what, I could do with some heat right now, couldn't we? It's freezing outside at the moment. Anyway, today with Fantastic Mr. Fox, we are going to be looking at summarising, which is a really important skill. And we'll read the chapter, and at the end, there's a wee task for you to do to develop that skill. So, make sure you're sitting comfortably. Do you remember what happened in the last chapter? I do. I haven't been able to sleep. I was so scared thinking about it. The farmers shot off Mr. Fox's tail, but not content with that, they were like, no, we need to actually get him. So they went to get shovels to try and dig the foxes out. So, here we go. Down the hole, Mrs. Fox was tenderly licking the stump of Mr. Fox's tail to stop the bleeding. It was the finest tail for miles around, she said between licks. It hurts, said Mr. Fox. I know it does, sweetheart, but it'll soon get better. And it will soon grow again, Dad, said one of the small foxes. It will never grow again, said Mr. Fox. I shall be tailless for the rest of my life. He looked very glum. There was no food for the foxes that night, and soon the children dozed off. Then Mrs. Fox dozed off. But Mr. Fox couldn't sleep because of the pain in the stump of his tail. Well, he thought, I suppose I'm lucky to be alive at all. And now they've found our hole. We're going to have to move out as soon as possible. We'll never get any peace if we... What was that? Oh no. Oh, wait. I think I know what it is. Do you know what it might be? He turned his head sharply and listened. The noise he heard now was the most frightening noise a fox can ever hear. The scrape, scraping of shovels digging into soil. Wake up! He shouted. They're digging us out! Mrs. Fox was wide awake in 1 second. She sat up, quivering all over. Are you sure that's what it is? She said. I'm positive. Listen. They'll kill my children, cried Mrs. Fox. Never, said Mr. Fox. But, darling, they will, sobbed Mrs. Fox. You know that they will. Scrunch, scrunch, scrunch went the shovels above their heads. Small stones and bits of earth began falling from the roof of the tunnel. How will they kill us, Mummy? Asked one of the small foxes. His round black eyes were full of fright. Will there be dogs? He said. Mrs. Fox began to cry. She gathered her 4 children close to her and held them tight. Suddenly, there was an especially loud crunch above their heads. The sharp end of a shovel came right through the ceiling. The sight of this awful thing seemed to have an electric effect upon Mr. Fox. He jumped up and shouted, I got it! Come on, there's not a moment to lose. Why didn't I think of it before? Think of what, Dad? A fox can dig quicker than a man, shouted Mr. Fox, beginning to dig. Nobody in the world can dig as quick as a fox. The soil began to fly out furiously behind Mr. Fox as he started to dig for dear life with his front feet. Mrs. Fox ran forward to help. So did the 4 children. Go downwards, ordered Mr. Fox. We've got to go deep as we possibly can. The tunnel began to grow longer and longer. It sloped steeply downward. Deeper and deeper below the surface of the ground it went. The mother and the father and all 4 of the children were digging together. Their front legs were moving so fast you couldn't see them. And gradually, the scrunching and scraping of the shovels became fainter and fainter. After about an hour, an hour? Can you imagine digging for an hour? I'd be shattered. After about an hour, Mr. Fox stopped digging. Hold it, he said. They all stopped. They turned and looked back up the long tunnel they had just dug. All was quiet. Whew, said Mr. Fox. I think we've done it. They'll never get as deep as this. Well done, everyone. They all sat down, panting for breath, and Mrs. Fox said to her children, I should like you to know that if it wasn't for your father, we should all be dead by now. Your father is a fantastic fox. Mr. Fox looked at his wife, and he smiled. He loved her more than ever when she said things like that. The end of chapter 4. A very intense, exciting, bit of a nervous chapter too. But the foxes, for the moment, seem to be safe from the farmers. Knowing what you know about Farmer Bogus, Bunce, and Bean, do you think they'll be okay with that? Do you think they'll be like, oh, the foxes dug deep, fine, whatever, we'll give up? No, I don't think so either. I don't think so either. Okay, so today I said we were going to look at summarising. Now, a summary is when you take a big piece of information and condense it into a smaller piece of information to get across the main points. Condense means to make something smaller. So we take maybe a chapter from a book, and rather than read that whole chapter, I might ask you to summarise the chapter. Tell me what happened. So I've got a summary here of chapter 1 from Fantastic Mr. Fox. Now, chapter 1 is 2 full pages long. And okay, I've made my text quite big here, but it's really just a short paragraph. Here you go. Would you be able to tell what had gone on in the chapter from this? You tell me. Down in a valley, there were 3 farms owned by 3 farmers. Their names were Bogus, Bunce, and Bean. Bogus was a chicken farmer, Bunce was a duck and goose farmer, and Bean was a turkey and cider farmer. They were nasty men, so much so that the children in the valley used to sing a song about them being so mean. Kind of sums it up, eh? I know I could have gone into information about how Bogus would eat chicken for breakfast, dinner and that, and how Bean would drink all the cider, and he would smell like a poisonous apple, all these things, but that's kind of extra information. It's not the main points. So when we're summarising, we don't need to put in everything. We just put in the main points, and then we write it out as a wee paragraph, a summary. And so today, that's your task. Your learning intention is to summarise a chapter, and the task is to write a short summary of the events, that means what happened, in chapter 4. Now, in order to do that, you're going to have to rewind the video and pause it on the pages and look back for key information. It might be a good idea to, I don't know, get a whiteboard and pen or a piece of paper or whatever and just bullet point some of the key bits that happen in there, or take notes of it. And then, using those notes, then you can write your summary. Now, when you write a summary, mind, it needs to use full sentences. It's not just bullet points and notes, but it's just a good way to do it. It shouldn't be any longer than 50 words. That's quite a lot, actually, to write. So it should, yeah, about a third of a page. I know we've been looking at fractions, but a third of a page would be good. If you want to make it longer, be my guest. If you want to summarise chapter 3 as well, fire away. That's absolutely fine with me. And then a wee bit of optional success criteria at the end. If you can, post your work on Teams. That would be great. Magic. Hope you enjoyed this chapter. Tomorrow, chapter 5. We'll see what happens now that the foxes have dug deeper. Thanks for tuning in again. Have a good one.